Mutawaf Shaheed. I I'm a writer, various venue genre. I'm sorry, uh, flash fiction, novellas, poetry, prose, political articles, and my particular philosophy is really not mine. It's a philosophy that I have adopted, and I guess in common terms you could call it a universal philosophy because the master of the universe is who dictates what I do, what I think, and gives me my directions. For years, I couldn't. I had to stop writing because when I came in contact with this philosophy that I basically have adopted, I found out that the words that I would write were inadequate, and the words that were written for me were more than adequate. And it took me a while to get my own voice again, and with his permission, I was able to do that. And since then, I have been very prolific in terms of my writing. Uh, Writing for me is like healing. It's something that I don't necessarily write for other people. I write for me, and if other people get it, then fine. But that I'm not motivated by that. Of course, when you write things, it's good to have people like what you write. There are people who can connect with you um, on certain wavelengths. And as a former musician, I have writing and music being together because people write music. And I found that in writing, I was able to express myself better than I was in a more understandable way, let's say to a greater degree, to be understood by a greater degree than I would musically. But the music is still there, and from time to time, you'll be able to see that in what I write. I've written for a long time, since the seventh grade, and the only hesitation that I had was when I began to deal with my spiritual development, and having that uh, underway, I was satisfied that maybe I could try to write something again. But after I read the words that Almighty God Allah had revealed, it was hard for me to try to imagine how could I write anything better than what was written. And then eventually I found my own voice, and I've been writing ever since. I started writing back in 1999, 2000, about 2001. That's actually when I started writing. And I have 44 books with 3 compilation CDs. That's kind of like one of my projects that I'm working on now. I have an international publication that I'm working on now. And I have a publication I'm being featured in another publication out of New York, a magazine, internet magazine called Altadilla, Swifts and Slows. And I have some other projects that I'll be working with a friend of mine in Paris, in France rather, named Pierre. I can never pronounce Pierre's last name, and I don't want to try because it'll be messed up. And I don't want him to see this and then say the guy is messing my name up. Pierre's a good guy. We did a thing together for the Wire magazine back in 2019, and it went very well. And so we're in constant contact. And through him, I have made other contacts and other venues for my writing. I've been involved in various anthologies, and my peer, I am the student of a very well-known avant-garde poet named Russell Atkins, and he was the director of a poetry workshop that I was involved in the 60s, and he's still living today, and he's very much respected by all of those people who didn't respect him and understand him then. Now, after having reached the age of 90 something, he's getting his due, long overdue. So basically, that's kind of like everything at this point. Sometimes it's hard to remember the things that you do, especially if you're not emphasizing yourself. I emphasize the writing, and consequently, that reveals who I am sometimes. Sometimes I'm C.E. Shy, and sometimes I'm Mutawaf Shaheed. And C.E. Shy is a pen name that I use out of respect for my father. And my books are dedicated to my parents, who put up with more than I could have ever put up with. And I've also been a consultant for certain book ballots and bullets, Black Power Politics, and Urban Guerrilla Warfare in Cleveland, 1968, and the book Shondo. Shonda Burns was a gangster here in Cleveland, Ohio, and I knew some of the people that were involved with him, and I consulted with Rick Pirelli, who wrote the book, about certain segments of that period of time in the 60s where I was involved on some level with some of the people that referenced in his book. The Ballots and Bullets was a book that was dedicated to myself and to a former Cleveland police officer, Garcia, who is now about 86 years old and lives in Florida. And it seems that we never got past 1968, and that has always been my opinion. And some of the political things that I've been doing recently is kind of like focusing on the attitudes of the people and how things haven't changed and probably won't ever until this whole thing is just taken completely off the face of the earth. That's kind of like where I am with everything now at this point. That's about all I can think of right now. I mean, if there's anything else, maybe in another video, I can mention that. But the projects that I've just discussed are the ones that are currently on the table. And if anything else comes up, I'll just have to deal with it when it happens.